One thing, and I'm very curious I'm very curious to hear if there is going to ever like we'll probably never get to the bottom of the reason for it, apart from like the baseline surface level narrative of let's say virtue signaling brownie points. I don't know. Navi have just announced, or at least Electronic and Perfecto have announced that they want to compete under neutral flags and not Russian flags going forward into 2023. And so remember how we were talking about this in the past, where the Navi organization, they basically excised all Russian players and individuals from their organization and said that they did not want to work with anybody based
They
in
claimed
Russia.
they did, but they never actually did it. Yeah.
Well, they didn't go through with it with Electronic and Perfecto.
Well, they also kept apparently some of this staff, I believe. And
indeed. Okay, then.
I think Richard mentioned something like that. Like, I don't think they did actually kick everyone out. I think they kept a couple of people.
That would be news then, because they definitely got rid of a few Russians.
They did, but they did it in a cynical way. Like, I heard they sort of did it where it's like, if they just wanted to get rid of you or not pay you, they just fired you, basically.
It's like the perfect example. It's like the perfect excuse. They're like, dude, we really don't want to be paying this guy anymore, but it may look bad if we get.
It's a perfect reason to do it, though.
That would be how they do it. Holy shit. Okay, well then at that point, if that's the case, then that kind of changes the dynamic of the picture, doesn't it? Because then it's not not so much.
The first thing I thought when I saw this story was, I can't even take this at face value that Perfecto and Electronic of their own volition wanted this, because it's Navi, and Navi has so heavily played into the war story, let's say, of like, we have to get all Russians out, sanctions on Russia, Russia is bad, can't pay the money. Well, obviously the problem, which has been mentioned many times by Richard, is even though they talked a good game way back in February about, these guys will just move to Serbia and all those countries and it'll be okay because they'll get rid of being Russian. They clearly haven't done it. So instead, this to me is the response you do, since they're not going to move country and go to Serbia or some other country. What you do instead is you go, they don't even claim they're Russian anymore. Joke being, you've almost in some way actually figured out the Gordian knot solution there, because in the modern day, just claiming what you identify as is the physical reality. That's actually sort of like a next level fucking checkmate move by the Navi org, but I don't think they intentionally did it. The reason why this is very sinister to me goes like this, right? If people don't know, the reason why the classic swastika Nazi flag is obviously something that would be incredibly offensive to show in the modern day is because that was the actual like symbol of that regime in Germany. Remember, the German flag is a very different flag, isn't it? So here's the difference. If you use that flag, you are expressly saying, I sort of fuck with that regime. If you just show the classic Russian flag, which on HLTV.org, this is a key thing, isn't even the one with all the big ego. It's just the three-colour flag. It's the three colours we've all seen for years and years. Now, that goes historically back hundreds of years. That was before the Soviet time. That was even before, apparently, like Alexander II or something. That is a flag that's existed in like the 1800s and the 1700s, Semmler. So, as a result, that flag doesn't represent Putin or like the idea of invading Ukraine or Novorossiya. It doesn't represent any of those things. It just represents Russia. So this is one of those areas where I think it becomes sinister, mate, because now it's like, look, the player himself can say this, like, I just don't want the flag. That's no big deal. But you are almost implying even now the Russian flag is evil. Like, what? How far are we going to go with this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, does it never end? Like, next, we're not allowed to have like a bear as a logo or something. What, how far are we going to go? Is my point. And again, I'll just say it for the millionth time. I get why they might do it. Like, if I'm Electronic and Perfecto, by the way, one of the best reasons to do this is just to stop the dickheads who never stop tweeting about it. That's one reason you might give in and do it. But again, I'll just say this: not a single life will ever be saved because Perfecto and Electronic changed their flags. Just going to say it like that.
Nothing to it. I mean, it feels like it's it's such a weird situation, because now it's like arbitrarily good and bad sides have been picked. And so if you're on the wrong side, that's it. It's over. Also, this is also kind of catering to a group of people who these social media denizens who, for them, it's just, borders, that's just a line on a map. We're global citizens, we're cosmopolitans, we travel all over the place, and blah blah blah, right? Like, what's a nation? No national pride at all. But it really matters all of a sudden that you come from Russia. Can't have that. Russia. It's like, it really does feel like it's the hollowing out of any value. And it feels really weird to see that kind of thing happen here in esports, where, I mean, It is. I mean, that's well, esports used to be a thing where you didn't really care. It was a bit of a cosmopolitan exercise in the sense that the internet made it so that international, it didn't care. It didn't matter where you're coming from in that sense. It just feels so so. Yeah, no, you're right. Demeaning that Electronic and Perfecto
It's
are
like a
ones who are
humiliation
arbitrarily being
ritual.
forced to
Yeah.
do this.
It's like you just, what you doing? By the way, this actually ties into something I do think is going on here as a phenomenon, Semmler. The phenomenon is this. There are people who are only on the internet, like you say, who are not physically participating in this war. Maybe they're indirectly through giving money, and they think, Semmler, they're LARPing like they are a combatant in the war. And so what they think is this. They just want to hurt any Russian that comes into their sphere. So if they can't themselves fight in the war, by the way, maybe could go and sign up, but apparently they don't want to. They're just tweeting. So instead, if they can somehow fuck with outsiders players, if they can annoy Electronic and Perfecto, if they can tell them, oh, tell you to cry it and do that, then that's their, they think that's their helping the war effort. I think really believe it's like a way to assuage their own inaction, if you know what I mean.
How is this not different from posting black squares or
It's the same shit, basically.
Right? How is this any different from any other fad on the internet?
What's sad as well, by the way, is I even didn't think this was what it actually is at first. When I first heard like Electronic, I think it was Perfecto I heard, once his like flag changed, I thought it was like an example people might know from back in the day, which is the old player Kucha, who for most of the time I knew him in 1.6 when he played with people like Angel and stuff in those teams. He used to always have the Ukrainian flag on, right? But then I noticed when he was in Hellraisers in CSGO, he had the Russian flag on, and I was like, what? And it turns out he's one of those people who is from Crimea. And so at the time, his family was dual citizenship, so he could choose which one he was. And I believe now he chose to go back to like Ukrainian one or whatever. I thought it was like that. I thought, oh, maybe Electronic, you know, his granddad is from Ukraine, and he can get a. He's just going to change to Ukrainian. But when I found out, no, it's that they're just erasing the flag, and they're just not a flag. It's like, what even is this exercise? You know, again, like I say, if they want to do it, fair play, they can do whatever they want, but I just think this is, again, just a nonsense exercise. I don't think this materially does anything, and I don't think it doesn't help morale. It doesn't like encourage people to battle rush. Exactly. It doesn't do any of that stuff, does it? It just means these guys don't have a flag.
This can just continue to breed resentment. And this is, I mean, this is already, I mean, you're already talking about this Na'Vi roster getting their prime for this roster robbed from them because of all of these circumstance of which they had no control over. But now it seems like it's only going to get to get worse, because if Simple is behaving the way that he is online with these social media posts, if that's bleeding in already, it might have been a tense year. But now if you're going to have back and forth and you're going to add the Ukrainian Russian thing into the mix, I mean, why is it that that like at this point, like watching the players walk out, it is weird to me to see the Ukrainians all wearing their flag and their teammates. Like, I don't know, if you're a teammate, maybe not wear, like if your teammate can't wear his flag because arbitrarily we've decided that's bad verboten. Why wear your flag? Why not show some compassion? I don't know what's the word I'm looking for right now.
It's like a shared common human,
some common ground with your teammate. I don't know. Esprit de corps, you know, like show some esprit de corps with your teammate, and
team spirit. That's a good time.
Team spirit, not make it this thing. But it feels like it was really weird watching this major where it's like, okay, we're calling them outsiders, we're not calling them virtus.pro, and everybody else can wear a flag, but not those players. Definitely not those players. They can't show any national pride, because showing national pride would obviously mean that they sign off completely on everything that Putin's doing right now. It's like, come on, it's so tiresome, this empty, hollow bullshit. Can we move on and let the players
also
play?
Mate, you should know this from America particularly. I've always thought the silliest notion ever is the people, Semmler, who are like left-wing protesters in America, so they burn the flag. It's like, bro, if you are the patriot, the joke is you should think of the flag as you and the government as the enemy. Not the joke is you're supposed to be like, you've illegitimately taken my flag and used it for something it doesn't represent. Like, so if anything, having the flag, as far as I'm concerned, just represents, like you say, like the country of people. It doesn't necessarily represent the war effort. I will say, I get why you phrased it that way. I also thought the same thing. Like, I thought to myself, if I was a Na'Vi player, the reason I wouldn't wear the Ukrainian flag is just because, even though, look, you might totally disagree with the reasons, in theory, this flag also kills their people, surely. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, soldiers who were in battle, I mean, you might know because of mobilization, you don't even have a choice now. Like, some people are just press ganged into war. Like, that doesn't mean that person is evil, whatever ends they're having a battle in. So I agree, though, that I don't think this is the problem with this topic. Obviously, if they were coming out at big events wearing a massive Russian flag, you could say that might be incendiary. We're just talking about HLTV posts, guys. That's not really that big a deal. It's not the same, is it? It's a tiny little, like, 96 by 96 pixel fucking tiny little 3 colors, isn't it? It's not in any way showing support for someone, but whatever. Just another fucking spinning our wheels like every week of esports. Notice again, nothing tangibly material ever accomplished in these scenarios.
No, of course not. But it's that little it's that drip feed, you know. Maybe you were getting a little low. You needed your hit. You needed something. You needed a taste, and so that was what got you that little endorphin kick. Was making them not be able to have their flag. So fine, fair enough. The other one actually that from the region before we move on to more international stuff, but VP they decided to bring in the ES Force head to become their new CEO. So virtus.pro talking about distancing themselves a little bit with new management, et cetera, new ownership, right? So that they could go ahead and continue to operate in the Western Sphere. And so for that reason, virtus.pro have their logo back in Dota. ESL and Blast are arbitrarily deciding to not allow that to happen here in CS. But that was one bit of news that came up that was interesting to keep an eye on, as well as that ES Force was one of those organizations in Russia that was tied to the oligarchs, and now they've gone ahead and brought one of these guys in to run Virtus.pro. So there are still ties, of course. There's still ties with Virtus.pro as a Russian organization to the old system. So
to be fair, Semmler, the virtus.pro one was always very complicated because that one wasn't even about being Russian. It was about the notion that an oligarch has connections with Putin himself. Because if you don't know the Uzmanov guy, that was like the guy who owns ES Force and all that, he's actually from Uzbekistan, I believe. It's just that he had like some sort of relationship with Putin. So that wasn't even about being Russian. Like, it's more the idea, do you have a connection? So yeah, I mean, as usual, it's like, listen, it was obvious what was going on. It was just a level of abstraction to be allowed to do business again. My problem is this. I think it's hypocritical as fuck that all these Westerns are like, how dare they just put one layer of abstraction? That's all you cocksuckers are doing. So why aren't they allowed to do it? You know what I mean? Why are they allowed to get away with
50% of their revenue to Rainbow Road or Rainbow Railroad or whatever the fuck? That's gotta cross that line when they come to it.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.